All right, so we're here with Andrea and Jeremie King, and my
Yeah.
name is Thaddeus Ferguson. And today we're going to be talking about David Beda's book. I might be saying it wrong, but it is what it is. Uh, the Way of the Superior Man in chapter 12, which begins with be willing to change everything in your life. A man must be prepared to give 100% to his purpose, fulfill his karma or dissolve it, and then let go of that specific form of living. He must be capable of not knowing what to do with his life, entering a period of unknowingness and waiting for a vision or a new form of purpose to emerge. These cycles of strong, specific action, followed by periods of not knowing what the hell is going on, are natural for a man who's shedding layers of karma in his relaxation into truth. And so this really applies to male or female. And thankfully for me, I have a male and a female right here, ready to answer. So let's start. What would you say? What is karma?
You start.
I'm new to the whole thing as far as putting a label on it, but I grew up with the old idea of it. Like, you did bad. I used to be in the Khmer Rouge, so this lifetime, I'm going to end up having to work for somebody and be beat up, or like I'm gonna have to pay off my bad debts. And I've understood it very differently now. And there was one book I read. It was a small one from an old Indian metaphysician named Ananda Coomaraswamy. He wrote a book called The One and Only Transmigrant. And I started to really understand the journey of the soul coming from source and coming from the one. And so for me, the understanding of karma is that I've got all these stories playing out in my existence that some of them are undone and need to be completed as I'm going through it now. A lot of it's old and it needs to be completed, and there's a lot of little pieces, and for me, I'm getting lost in it because karma is it's a big thing for me now. I'm relearning what it means and accepting the fact that life is full of change and it's always for a purpose.
Mm.
I like the title of this chapter, to be willing to change everything in your life. And I think for my understanding of karma is you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what your experience needs to create that complete being. And in each person, we have the ability to experience both sides of every situation. So my understanding of karma in over multiple lifetimes and soul experiences is about you get to, so instead of you have to, you get to experience both sides of every experience, the perpetrator, victim, and or whatever it looks like, so you can fully understand the whole picture. So to me it's kind of like that, like without having resistance to a piece of an experience you need to have, and allowing yourself to have it so you can let it go. I think that's kind of how I hear what he's saying here. Like, the karma is going to happen. Like, you're going to play this stuff out whether or not you want to. It's part of your journey. So you can be pissed about it and resist it, or you can just kind of relax into it and know that you're going to go through it, and that's okay.
I'm finding that the more grounded and present that I am and appreciative of everyday life, I'll notice that there's something really strong and energetic wanting to move through me. One of the things that I realized years before I met Andrea was that if I was so smart, then I wouldn't need all of these changes in my life. I'd have everything I needed. So I'm looking around at the sum total of my life's work at any given moment. I'm like, okay, so I'm scraping together change to get gas. This is the sum total result of my life so far. Perhaps I'm open to some change. And then when I got into that mindset, all the different beliefs that I had about myself, I'm finding have a much deeper energetic and spiritual meaning to them. So accepting them and working with them is a lot easier than fighting them.
And so you were talking about change, and I think that leads right into the next question, which is like, what's the significance of entering a period of unknowingness, which is essentially change, because change requires not knowing. So you do have to enter into that unknowingness for change. It's like when I go to a restaurant, and I order something that I've never ordered on the menu before, it's a period of unknowingness in regards to what it is. Where if I was like, oh yeah, I had this last week, I know what this is, I'm gonna do that. That's not a period of unknowingness, even though it is. It's still change, but it's not as significant. So yeah, that's the question. What's the significance of entering a period of unknowingness?
I think when I met Jeremie, he was coming out of a period of unknowingness, and he was really in, I call it in his cave. Like he had just gone through a lot of personal work and a lot of his own understanding of himself. So when we met, he was like peeking out, ready to do the next thing. So he wasn't like buried deep in the corner. He was like
The next
all
thing.
right. All right, I'm coming out. So I think that, if you speak to that, it was, and we all go through it, the dark night of the soul, or, depression, or whatever these periods in our life look like, or whatever we call them. And whether they're a day or a week or several years, like we go through these periods. So the unknowingness is like the void, the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, I knew about the dark night of the soul. I just didn't have any clue what the void was. So when all of my passion and motivation just went, and I was sitting at my desk going like, I don't want to do nothing. What's the point? It was really perplexing. I learned later, of course, what this transition point was. But for me, I remember having a very specific conversation with myself and all my different parts about it's time to let everything go and test everything about our lives. So I had sort of like metaphorically put everything on the table for a big bonfire. All of my beliefs, everything I thought I should believe. I mean, I've been an artist since I was 4 years old. I mean, that's obviously my karma. That's what I'm supposed to do with my life. Maybe not. What about being an ex-husband or a boyfriend or a father and all these things? It was just time to let all of that go so that whatever was left was worth following, because ashes are not worth following. And I didn't want my life to be all gummed up with a bunch of stuff I thought it was supposed to be. Because if I was such a genius, you'd think my life would have the evidence of my genius all over it, but I didn't. It's time for change, and I had no idea what was coming next. And I had to be okay with that, because all the time I tried to control everything in the past led me to the point where I had to let it go. So if you have half a brain and things aren't working, you think, I need to make some changes, and I may not know what that means. So warrior up, face south and get bloody and make it happen.
Yeah.
So what tools have you found to be most effective for you in regards to letting go, and just doing the work, the process that you've been doing?
You want to go first? Because I need to think about it.
Yeah, so I've mentioned this before in our conversations, but I jumped into spirituality, and I jumped into every modality because I was curious, like, what does this do? So I've said, like, I've tried SRT and EFT and all the different acronyms for all the different modalities. What I realized was all of them did something to me, some more tangibly than others. I'd go through initiations and activations and spiritual journeys and weekend retreats and all these different things. So they all gave me something tangible, some more than others. But so SRT is spiritual response therapy. That is like a really interesting modality. And the first time I experienced it, I was at just like a new opening of a new wellness center, and there's a lady there doing that. So I sat down with her, and she did some work with me, and I just felt it was almost like a little pew. I'm like, what the heck was that? She's like, I think something just left. I'm like, what just happened? But I felt it. And it wasn't always like huge and tangible. It was often very subtle, but then later on, I'd realized that thing was gone. I used to be claustrophobic, like bad. Like I couldn't wear one of those plastic bracelets that they give you, they stick on you. If it was too tight, I'd be like panicking, like it's stupid, but that's what claustrophobia does to some people. So after a while, like that was gone. And I'm like, well, I wonder what did that. but one of those things happened to release my claustrophobia. So for me, SRT is really powerful, and burning things, writing and burning things really works for me. I really enjoy that. I feel that practice as well. So writing down the things you don't want and setting them on fire, just that works for me too.
Oh, so burning papers. Those
Yep.
are the things. Okay.
But yeah, writing it down, so there's that physical act and that you know, that connection to your body and your mind and your thoughts, and you write it down and you see it, and then when you burn it, you see it turn into ashes,
Which aren't worth following.
which are not worth following. You said
Yeah.
that's such a great thing.
I studied NLP in my men's work, and I've watched the power of well-practiced NLP on people who are willing to have an intervention and a change. And then over time, it led me to understand more about the power of the subconscious, of the brain. Then I discovered Joe Dispenza, and I didn't care for the woo-woo stuff at the time, but just the pure scientific part of it about how your brain and your body communicate. And if your brain has no doubts about the veracity of something, it'll do it. And so I let that be true. And I ended up with this really unique situation that takes too long to explain. But different aspects of me became like a mastermind. And I became able to speak with different components and aspects of my own being, like my thoughts, my body, my higher self, my inner child. I could have a direct conversation. And for me, a process is when I feel a whole bunch of energy stuck in my body, to just touch it and communicate with it. And next thing you know, it's talking.
Mhm.
And to be able to do that helps me understand where it all came from. And sometimes these things that need to be let go of really just need to be listened to, respected deeply, and then integrated.
Mhm.
If I have an old fear, or if I have a rage, or if I have a pure joy that's never had a chance to be expressed, there's wisdom and there's power in there. And rather than trying to like get rid of those feelings, it's more like, come on in, let's get in the tent and scream and set everything on fire and see what happens.
So it sounds like what you're saying is sometimes in order to let something go, you have to fully accept it and acknowledge it first,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
because
Embrace it.
it's trying to tell you something. It's almost like you keep shooting the messenger, and it's like I've got to shut the door. I don't want to hear it, and it's like, okay, we'll send somebody else, and it's the same message, and finally you just answer the door. They're like, here you go, and now you can let it go because you have it.
Yeah, like if you put in a big backpack on and you got this weird thing on your back and you don't ever want to talk about it, you can throw a shirt over it. It's like, well, you got a hunch. It's like, no, I don't. And one of these days you're gonna have to take it all off, get naked, and deal with this thing you put on yourself. It's not gonna go anywhere until you face it. And then you can look in it and go, oh, my grandma loves me, or whatever. And
My grandma loves me. I like that.
Yeah.
The thoughts too, that the thoughts and feelings around things. So we're talking about what to let go of, and letting go of things that when you think about them, you don't feel good about them anymore. And projects, people, situations, whatever it is. Like when it comes into your awareness and you're like, oh, like, that kind of nauseous feeling, like I don't want that. It's really, you're trying to tell yourself like that. You're knocking at your door going, hey, can we like maybe not do that thing anymore? And how often do we like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. And then we go do it again and leave and feel drained and tired. Like, it's really not fine. And being okay with letting go of this stuff and like making these big changes, it's scary at first, but once you do it, it's like, huh, that's better. That's
Yeah.
better.
there's a lot of resources out there
Oh,
for
yeah.
if you just say to yourself, I need to learn how to let go of things,
Mhm.
then you can go just, type it in, like, how do I let go of things?
Yep.
And you'll get 1,000 different ways and processes.
We're in this group with people who help people with that. So if you're watching this and you are a practitioner of any modality that helps release trauma, and we know there's a lot of them, then, drop your name here. This is an invitation to kind of promote yourself and make people aware of you, because this is a big piece right now. And these times, all this stuff is coming up to clear, and we feel it, and it's sticky, and it's like, oh, what is that? Where is that coming from? And I've been seeing it a lot in people in my life and in my world, that there's just stuff that's coming up, and they don't even know what it is or why it is. And you don't really need to, but you do need to move it, find a way to move it. So anybody out there is watching who does this stuff, throw your name in the comments here so people can find you and connect.
I mean, if you just understand the simple like function of the brain at its base level is to avoid pain and move towards things that are easy and feel good. Like uncertainty doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So the brain goes, that's painful. Go back there and stop this, and it's going to give you every possible gimmick it could ever come up with to keep you from it. But if you know that the other side of the fire, down in the shadows, you'll find that gold, and you can have the healing and the progress that you want, then just be a warrior for your own life, for your own sake. Look at the fact that if you need to change something, change is uncertain. You got a whole system that's going to make you try to avoid it. Take some time, get grounded, look for the resources, then just go about it step by step.
Yeah.
I at least have found for myself, other people I've worked with, when you make that first step, it becomes cumulative and it tends to get faster. Because if your subconscious thinks nothing's safe, it's not going to let you have anything. It's just going to pull up the costume and reinforce every bad behavior you could ever imagine that you have. But if you give it a little reason to go, oh, okay, we can let go of that now, and you reframe things and start having success, it'll start moving quicker. Like if your first change takes a year, your second one isn't going to take a year. It might take like 5 minutes. And it's like, whoa, here they go.
Just it took a while to get used to, huh?
Yeah.
All right. And then your guys' information, where if people want to work with you guys, is Purple Squirrel.
Naughty Squirrel Academy.
The Naughty Squirrel Academy.
Yeah, we'll put that in the details. We're working with basically staying centered and aligned to your purpose, figuring out what that is, and finding ways to just make small changes which turn into larger changes. Wrestling that squirrel mind that keeps you distracted. So it's kind of like a big whatever you need. But a lot of it is for people just like us. Like people who have been doing this for a while but could get kind of stuck, or really aren't sure what to do next. And it just kind of helps bring everything back into the center. So that's definitely what we are here to help people with, for sure.
There's a lot of different vocabulary and modalities and systems, ways to look at things. Every human being has their own karma and journey, and it's more like a process of just speaking the truth in simple terms, and it's not in a disrespectful way. Sometimes simplicity is really the only answer. Because when I've looked into my own shadows, I realized the complexity came from all of the years of stories and defense mechanisms and this fortress of nonsense I'd built around myself so I could exist in my world based on the story I've created, or it was originally started by some other authors when I was a child that I'm now stuck doing that Bart Simpson on the board, repeating it over and over again.
Yeah, break some cycles and let go of some stuff.
I like that. Break some cycles and let go of some stuff.
Yeah, and that's being human, right?
It is. Yeah. And find some cookies.
Find the cookies.
Yeah, little wins are important. They lead to big ones, and they lead to cumulative wins, and they become a massive amount of wins that start taking over, and it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, we're looking for the good landslide instead of the downhill slide now. And like the abundance flowing in and everything's good, and you choose what feels right and you stop choosing what doesn't feel right. And it seems really simple, but a lot of people are really bad at it. Because we have been too. So it's like it's so easy. It's like, why am I not choosing my best life? Like, what am I doing? So we laugh at ourselves a lot, so we're inviting other people to laugh at themselves and us with us.
Yeah, and if you're not willing to laugh at yourself, we'll
Absolutely.
Yeah, respectfully.
Of course. Well, thank you again for being here, being part of it, and helping us and this group become more and more awesome. I love what you're sharing, and grateful that you're on the other end of the valley, anchoring this magical space we have.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes, indeed. All right.
All
Till
right.
next time.
See everybody later.